villages of half the globe
and finds himself in exile in...
You've got your feet underneath you.
I wanna hold your hand.
In 1962, John F. Kennedy addressed the nation on the Cuban Missile Crisis.
This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Only last Thursday, as evidence of this rapid offensive buildup was already in my hand,
The Berlin Wall was starting to be built in 1961 and finished at about 1962.
French and British zones in the west. Building materials were brought out of nearby warehouses, and the notorious Berlin Wall began to take shape, to the great mystification of those on both sides who were soon to be out of sight of each other.
The Vietnam War went through the decade of the 60s, and they employed about 58,000 soldiers. At one point in the war, they thought it was going to be an endless war. On August 31st, 1961, the Red Army threatened to test the H-bomb.
We hope that the Soviet Union, if it has made a firm decision to conduct such an explosion, will think again about it.
The American U-2 spy plane was shot down by the Soviet Union on May 1st of 1960.
In 1960, the first presidential debate was broadcast.
So that our experience in government is comparable. Secondly, I think the question is, what are the programs that we advocate? What is the party record that we lead? I come out of the Democratic Party on natural resources. I think Mr. Nixon is an effective leader of his party. I hope he would grant me the same. The question before us is, which point of view and which party do we want to lead the United States?
I would also suggest that insofar as his statement is concerned, that I think it would be improper for the President of the United States to disclose the instances in which members of his official family had made recommendations, as I have made them through the years, to him which he has accepted or rejected. The President has always maintained, and very properly so, that he is entitled to get what advice he wants from...
In 1961, John F. Kennedy was inaugurated in the White House. His inaugural speech changed many people's opinions towards him in a good way, and was very inspirational.
As well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God.
John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth on February 20th, 1962, during the flight of Friendship 7.
Of the vehicle himself. Now comes the moment when the Mercury is turned so that Glenn will be seated facing backwards. He checks with ground control.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh,
That view is tremendous. Roger, turnaround has started. Capsule turning around, and I could see the boosters during turnaround just a couple of 100 yards behind me. It was beautiful. Roger, 7. You have a go. At least 7 orbits. Roger, understand go for at least 7 orbits.
Actual pictures of Glenn in the capsule will give scientists the opportunity to study his reactions as he passes over the Canary Islands, Africa, the Indian Ocean, Australia, back across the Pacific and over the United States. He speeds at 17,500 miles an hour, reaching a high point.
While President John F. Kennedy was in Dallas, Texas, he was assassinated. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his inspirational speech, I Have a Dream, on the Lincoln Memorial.
Live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
On March 27, 1964, an earthquake hit Alaska and practically destroyed some cities. In 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated.
Brother, please hold it. Calm down, please, brother.
In 1966 was the judicial trial of Miranda versus Arizona. In 1967, the 25th Amendment was added into the Constitution. The amendment states, in case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. In 1968, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. In 1969, Hurricane Camille hit the Gulf Coast and was very destructive.
By October 1961, of the 12 patients who had received artificial material valves, 2 had died from unrelated causes and 3 from infections. The remaining patients were well and 2 had returned to work. On July 20th, 1969, the first man stepped on the moon. During the next 3 years, 6 missions to the moon was made and a total of 12 astronauts walked on the moon.
Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. They're setting up the flag now. I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene. That's all right, I don't mind a bit. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface. Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now.
I'd like to evaluate the various paces that a person...
The first ATM was created in 1969.